Dabo Swinney is now using the transfer portal and using some NIL. It's still not enough. We're going to talk about how Clemson gets back on track.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, Locked On. All things Clemson today. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, note the following. Clemson still has adjusting to do, despite taking 10 portal players this offseason, if they want to return to a consistent title level team. Among the other things that they need to do, and we'll go through these throughout the show. Again, all Clemson today. Number one, they've got to come off the high horse on upfront money with NIL. I've heard some numbers. Some of them improved. They are using the portal, but there's still a gap. We'll get into that. We also need to talk more about what is going on with recruiting Georgia. When I give you the numbers that they used to get out of Georgia to what happened in the last 2 years, you're going to question it as well. Definitely going to dive into that. And then finally, it's about the ability to go and get the players and holding your coaches accountable, regardless of where they're from. Clemson does recruit nationally. I was shocked, but in their 2026 class, they signed players from 15 different states. Clemson shouldn't have to do that. There's nothing wrong with national recruiting, but Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina should be 75% of their class. And they signed one player from Georgia last year. What is going on? So let's kind of go through the list. I've got a bunch of questions. And to start off with, I just want to throw this up on the screen and have a little fun. What is Clemson's NIL approach? It's one I'm still trying to decipher. Honestly and personally, I don't know if it's definitive. Maybe it's circumstantial and or dependent on the position, the player. But based on what I was told a year ago by a player that gave me specific numbers on what he was offered at different schools, he flat out told me that he was wasting his time, that he'd taken the Clemson visit. The offer that he got from Clemson was a joke compared to the SEC schools that he went to visit. Like it wasn't even a third of what they were getting offered at another place. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, fair enough. I have not been given any numbers for this year, but I'm assuming they're at least better over the last year or so because they signed some really good players. And if you don't get money involved, you're not going to sign those kids, like kids out of Florida, kids out of Georgia, et cetera. They're still getting some of those guys. So is there a definitive approach? I cannot answer that. I would love to. But the one thing I know, if they want to compete at an elite level, some of the upfront money for NIL's got to go up some. Even like Notre Dame, who used to be very conservative, Penn State, who used to be very conservative, they've changed their parameters too. Clemson needs to do the same. Number two, will the Tigers start winning more battles in Georgia? Like, I don't understand this one maybe as much as anything else that I'm going to talk about today. It's really odd because Georgia is like 15 minutes from where Clemson is. They're right on the state line. It's pretty straightforward. You should be able to recruit that state, and they always have. Long before Dabo was even an assistant, they've recruited that state very, very well. But 2024, they signed 8 players from Georgia. 2025, they signed 3. 2026, 1. What on God's green earth is going on with Clemson and recruiting Georgia? They used to be a major thorn in the side of Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Florida, everybody that recruited in the state of Georgia. They won a lot of head-to-head battles for 4- and 5-star recruits. They were the only school, honestly, that would consistently go into even Alabama and take kids. Phoenix City Central, somewhere in Birmingham, whatever. They went into that state, even when Nick was there at Alabama. What happened? Is it the assistant staff doesn't have the same connections, or what's the deal? Because their recruiting's still pretty good, and it was just the most diverse Clemson class I've ever seen. Again, 15 different states for the recruits they got. That's a lot. Maybe that's their new approach, but I think they need to win in Georgia because that's as good a state as there is in the country. And for the record, per capita, Georgia is number 1 for high school to the NFL. Number 3, this is another one that's kind of fun. Has Clemson's overall recruiting process changed? I'm not talking about location. I'm talking about, are you using the same parameters to scout, to evaluate, and all that? They're not hitting as many big-time D linemen in recruiting now. And to that end, I've got some extended questions here. They won't all fit on the screen. I got a bunch more. I'm not sure. Maybe it's partially NIL. There's a lot of different ways you can look at this, but I'm a little bit concerned about it. So here are a few of the questions that I have to kind of extend to that point, especially, again, with the D linemen. It's a little bit weird. They don't have any D-line or O-line committed right now for the class of 2027. They got like 7 guys. They're good players, but no linemen right now. That's a little concerning for whatever that's worth. They have 1 guy committed. He's a good player. That's a 4-star linebacker from Michigan. That's unusual. I don't know why it would be in that scenario, but still. His name is Bryce Kish. He's out of Hell, Michigan. Good player, but a bunch of 3-star kids by 24/7 otherwise. They do their own recruiting. That's interesting. But anyway, number 2 on my secondary list here is talking about the issue with recruiting in Georgia and stuff. Well, they're not exactly killing it in South Carolina either. 1, 3, and 2. That's 24, 25, and 26 classes. That's very odd to me as well because, while not the greatest state for high school recruiting, South Carolina needs to be a little better than that. Some of the guys, like Elliot's now the head coach at Virginia. That's one guy. Why aren't they recruiting their own backyard better? Very odd. Tate Reynolds is a guy that I saw last year, Rivals 5-star. He's the quarterback out of Queen Creek, Arizona. Is he going to be somebody that helps Clemson? There's rumors that in spring, he's at least probably the number 2. Maybe he ends up being the starter this year. People get excited when there's a young quarterback. Maybe that'll help them. But if they're losing, is it going to help much? We'll see. That's one of those deals. Like quarterback, get your quarterback wherever you can. If you think he's a fit, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. Number 5, will Clemson add any top defensive tackles? They got Seth Tillman out of South Point up in Rock Hill. It's just outside across the border from Charlotte. Great program. He's got an OV set. But where are the other top defensive tackle recruits on the OV list? I'm sure they got a couple they think they're going to get set up. This is off 24/7, but I'm a little concerned about that. Number 6, will any of the 6 2026 offensive line signees make a move? Meaning, will they find a way into the 2 deep this year? And could they help 2027 recruiting? Possible. That's a really good O-line group. I thought it was a little underrated. They have several different guys. I like them. We'll see. Speaking of helping, the run game last year was all over the map. You had a former receiver move to running back. A lot of things going on there. Gideon Davidson is a recruit they'd brought in. A lot is expected of him. But who's going to be the backup? How's it going to work? Regardless how your O-line goes, you need to show that your offense is taking steps forward, even after you lost Cade Klubnik. I don't know if Gideon Davidson's going to be the face of it. They obviously have some really good receivers. There's no doubt. Their receiver room's pretty good across the board. But they need to have a run game to help mitigate teams pulling somebody out of the box and double teaming some of your receivers. To that end, a couple of guys they've got a shot at based on the official visit list. Gary Walker out of Creekside, just outside Atlanta. Great shot at him. Andrew Beard, a kid just outside of Athens. Prince Avenue is a program that's maybe 10 minutes from Athens, Georgia, right outside of where UGA's at. They got a shot at both those kids in Georgia. That would be really good for them. Now, my overall take, again, I just want to reiterate this. Forward thinking on NIL, even if it's selectively, they've got to pay a little more from the intel I have. Maybe it's not up to date, but a little more up to date on being open, on paying a little more upfront NIL. Hopefully I'm wrong and they're doing that. And they also have to just find a way to like revamp something. Something's missing if you're getting 1 kid out of Georgia in your Clemson. That's what they signed last year. That's a fact. They didn't do diddly in South Carolina either. Does anybody else find that odd? It used to be they would supplement in Florida with 2 or 3 kids. Georgia would be 5 to 8. South Carolina would be like 4 or 5. And then it's like 1 or 2 in Maryland, Virginia, Tennessee. They might get a kid from New Jersey or something kind of random. But this past year, it was just full of random. And this year, their highest ranked recruit to start the year is a linebacker out of Michigan. Good player, but it just seems very odd to me. Clemson should be Clemson. Don't reinvent the wheel. Recruit your backyard and get the elite kids. I still think the NIL is a part of that. We'll see. But at least, Dabo has done something smart. They have 10 portal players coming in. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And before I go and get to the other side here, I want to ask a question. Do you think 10 is enough? Like, what's the happy medium for you? Based on Clemson's current roster, I want to go over some of them. We'll talk a little bit about Clemson in regards to their depth chart, their ability to make decisions. Like, I don't think they have a bad roster. I just don't think it's as explosive, especially D-line. Running back is obviously not as deep. You've lost Klubnik. The O-line had a bunch of juniors and seniors and fifth-year seniors. They're gone. I need to see what they have coming in, and maybe we'll see something in regards to Clemson getting better. But right now, at 10, I would have liked to have seen 15. Do you agree with that assessment or not? And please tell me why. Because, again, I'm going to go over the list when we come back. But 10's probably a little short. And I know that they're still one of the favorites for the ACC. But if you're one player short, it could be the difference between 8-4 and 10-2. We'll talk about that next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market, so you can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets change the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. You always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now, actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play-by-play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the United States. Download the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Intuit TurboTax. It is tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has an in-person location nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get your every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description. Use code MARCH to get your first month free. Check out the Everydayer Club down in the description below. All right, let's talk about the portal in regards to Dabo. First off, last year they brought in just 4, but at least they started. This year they're bringing in 10, so that is improvement. There's a lot of things that you could say about Clemson that are pretty archaic. Well, this is one that's went away. I'm going to go through the list one by one and talk about Clemson's portal class, what's next for them, and recruiting after that. But this was the more important part than recruiting. I try to focus on recruiting with these segments. I'm going to do a bunch with teams for the next couple of months, but there's no way around it. They had to at least dabble in it because you're going to lose some guys at the portal. You're always playing catch up. So good for Clemson for at least, for what it's worth, changing the narrative and getting busy in the portal with some guys. Jalen Brown Wallace. This is the funniest one. I don't know much about this kid. He's from such a small school. If you look at 24/7, you click on the commitments. Down at the bottom, it's got the transfers. There's not even a school listed where he transferred from. I don't know anything about the kid, but that's hilarious. Chris Johnson Jr., this is a kid that I know, played at Dillard High School in Fort Lauderdale. He can fly. He's a 10-4, 100-meter kind of guy. Absolutely electric. Started at Miami, then he went to SMU, and now he's at Clemson. He averaged like 7.5 yards a carry last year. Let me see if I got the exact stat. I believe I do. That's a kid that can make a difference if he has the right mental makeup. Yeah, here are his stats. It's pretty impressive. 62 carries, 463 yards, 7.5 yards a carry. You're not going to find many guys with that kind of average. 4 touchdowns. Maybe he's the change of pace back for Clemson. I don't know. I know Chris can catch the ball too. Might be a punt and kickoff return guy, but he can fly. They also got London Merritt. He's a former IMG player. He's a pure edge guy. He's out of Atlanta, but he played at IMG Academy in Bradenton. He went out to Colorado, had offers from Ohio State and Michigan and Florida, all over the place. Decided on Colorado. Now he's headed to Clemson. They've had such a record with really good defensive ends. I kind of like the pick. But are they going to have the right guys making it happen? Like, it's Tom Allen, it's year 2. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know who all is going to be on the interior for them, but I don't think it's as dynamic as it has been. Certainly not as much as it probably was last year. We'll see, but he should be able to help. Another kid from Florida that I know, Elliot Washington II. He had 256 snaps for Penn State last year. He's a kid that can play corner, he can play nickel, he can play safety. He's a very gifted athlete. Another track kid. He played at Venice High School. He knows what it looks like to be an elite guy. I think that Elliot is the kind of player you want in your program. No nonsense, pretty quiet, A to B, just does what he does. Those are the kinds of players that usually end up working out at Clemson anyway. I like that fit. Those are 3 of the guys, not picking on anybody else. Those are 3 guys that I know. They're all from the state of Florida. I wanted to bring them up. Here are a couple of other ones that I'm curious about. CJ Wesley, an edge player. Didn't know much about him. I'm like, I know that name from somewhere, but he comes from Howard. Like, after the success that Indiana had with those kinds of players, I'm very, very curious. Marcus Strong, defensive lineman, big dude. I don't think he was a mainstay at Oklahoma, but he's 6'3", 297. And if you are that big and you made it to the Big 12 or the SEC or something, I'm at least interested. He might get a shot to play some serious minutes this next season at Clemson. They also got Courtney Kelly, another defensive lineman, another bigger guy. Wisconsin, Green Bay, I believe it is. Or no, excuse me, it's West Georgia. Like, that's a great story. Maybe he's a guy that's a sleeper. I mean, there's no way I can really grade him even if I had his film. He's playing West Georgia competition. Corey Mack, a safety. He comes over, and he's a kid that didn't play P4 last year. He played at Southern Miss. That's okay, but he's got length. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. You can always use more DBs. There's no doubt about that. Donovan Starr, kid I really liked out of high school, signed with Auburn. Clemson and a bunch of other schools that offered. He's a corner. He's out of the state of Tennessee, really athletic. He can run. Auburn's secondary, believe it or not, I know they haven't been very good lately, is loaded. It was just a log jam. So he's transferring from Auburn to Clemson. He's got some skills. Jerome Carter III. I don't know anything about this kid, but he was at Old Dominion. That's a pretty good program. That's not P4. The quarterback from there just signed with Wisconsin, and they've had some other guys too. I'm curious. I don't know anything about Jerome Carter. Maybe he's a guy, but Clemson's found so many guys that are diamonds in the rough, it wouldn't surprise me if he's pretty good. Now let's talk about the official visit list. This is where the rubber meets the road. They've only got 2 weekends, at least for whatever that's worth, for the class of 27 set up right now. And one of the weekends, this is when you know you're really all in on a specific weekend. They have 2 kids, according to 24/7, that are for one weekend and 22 for the other. That is a let's have a party and see what happens kind of scenario for them. And to be honest, hey, it worked for them last year when they had I forget which weekend it was. I want to say it was May, maybe even like May 15th last year. Clemson brought in the guys and they just killed it. Some players that nobody thought they had a chance at committed to Clemson. So this year they've got a weekend on June 12th. They got a couple of kids. But it's Friday, May 29th. I'm just going to go through the list one by one, and we'll discuss here in a bit. The kid I told you committed already. Top 200 recruit by 24/7. Bryce Kish out of Howell, Michigan. Good player, linebacker, 6'4", 220. He's already pledged to Dabo and the Tigers. Kayron Wheeler, he's out of St. Paul School in Baltimore, Maryland. Ranked 126th in the nation. I don't know much about him. I don't get to see the Baltimore kids very often. But if you're a top 150 kid, and you're an edge, yeah, I'm interested. 6'5", 245, that's pretty impressive. Kajon Telfair, well, this is an interesting one. Penn State is setting the pace right now with his recruitment. If Telfair takes the visit to Clemson, look out. He's supposed to go there at the end of May. He's a corner. He plays at Euclid. It's up in the Northwest Ohio. Northwest Ohio. That program's had players forever going to Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, you name it. That would be a really good get for either Penn State or Clemson, one of the top corners in the nation. He's ranked 113th nationally. Tay Walden Jr., a kid that I know well. He plays with Coastline Stars, the 7-on-7 team that I work with. They've got him listed as a receiver on 24/7. From talking to him, I'm pretty sure he's going to play corner in college, but he could do either. National top 100 guy, super athletic. He could absolutely fly. Just needs to add a little weight, but really good young man. He's living just on the edge of Memphis. His list is as national as it gets. From Oregon to Miami, like everybody's after him. That's the kind of kid that Clemson might be able to win it over because he fits Clemson. Very reserved, quiet, straightforward guy, easygoing. Gary Walker, probably going to end up at Clemson. Running back out of Creekside. I talked about him a few minutes ago. Power back, downhill, wants to thump you. Davion Jones out of U High School, Cornelius. That's a safety. I don't know a ton about him, but he's another top 200 kid. North Carolina is kind of like the supplement state for the Clemson Tigers. South Carolina, Georgia, their primaries. North Carolina is elite in terms of talent, and there's no dominant program there. That would be smart for them to dip back in there. Andrew Beard, running back I talked about out of Prince Avenue Christian School. They got a shot there too. Another top 200 running back. Jamaron Simmons, another kid I know well from Coastline Stars. I think he's conservatively a top 50 kid nationally. 247's got him number 61. Whatever, that's close enough. He's out of Godby in Tallahassee. Clemson's probably setting the pace there. Electric athlete. Safety, corner, slot, outside. I don't care. That is an NFL player. He has an incredible ability to get open. Calls himself Waffle House because he's always open. Waffle House is a pretty good nickname, by the way. I like that a lot. Peyton Miller out of Anna, Texas, interior offensive lineman, another top 200 recruit. Maybe they steal one out of Texas. That would be a nice get. If you're going to go national, Texas is a pretty good way to do it. Maybe the best safety / cornerback combination player, depends on who you want to talk to, in the country. Jaden Aparicio Bailey. He's out of Prattville. It's basically Montgomery, Alabama. He's visiting. I think that's probably, if I remember, like Georgia, that's their guy. I want to say they want him at safety, but I could be wrong. For whatever it's worth, and I've seen his film, I think he can play either. But 24/7 has him at corner. He's a big dude. He's roughly 200 pounds, maybe a little less, a little under. Really athletic. He's built. If Georgia really likes a DB, remember Kirby played DB at Georgia, I'm pretty sold. And I love his film too. Clemson's getting him on campus though. Kareem Ewing, the kid out of Gainesville, Georgia, already committed. He's their quarterback recruit. Will they take another quarterback in this class? I don't know. He committed pretty early to the Tigers. Deshaun Hall, yet another player. This is so wild. From Coastline Stars, wide receiver, 6'5", 185 pounds, give or take. I just saw him this past weekend at Under Armour, New Orleans. He had one of the best catches I've seen all year. One-handed guy lands on him. He gets crushed, and he catches it and keeps it through the ground. He's got serious skills. Also a big-time hooper. His offer list is through the roof. Auburn, Tennessee both want him in football and basketball, like serious athlete. He will be on campus for Clemson. Nate Carson, interior lineman from Irmo High School, Columbia, South Carolina. This is one of the few South Carolina kids they got coming in. Offensive lineman from Irmo, that's not shocking. It's one of the better programs in South Carolina. Lawrence Britt, another kid out of the Memphis area, another speedy player, kind of like Tay, 6'1", 180 pounds, can really run, top 250 recruit. Santana Harvey, one of my favorite players in the state of Florida, not only a Florida kid, 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in that range, out of Lakeland, one of the most tradition-rich programs in the Sunshine State. He will be at Clemson. And they also have Jarrell Chandler, Halls High School. I'm not familiar with that one. That must be a new school. 6'3", 210. Don't know much about him, but if he can play safety at that size, and that's why 247 has him listed, I'm intrigued. Trey Wembley, already committed to the Tigers, a wide receiver out of Daniel High School in Central South Carolina. That's like right next to Clemson. No surprise there, but he's a kid that you're going to take. He's a 4-star on 24/7. Reed Ramsey, one of the top linemen in the country, interior lineman. I think he'll play center or guard. They can play either. Texas wants him, Florida, Miami, like all kinds of schools. The First Academy in Orlando, big-time player. That would be a huge get for the Tigers. Carter Jones, another offensive lineman, very good, out of the state of Virginia. Georgia and several other programs are after him. Really good offensive lineman. I think he can play inside or out. Max Brown, his brother, obviously, the Brown that is in the Clemson lineup. He's another kid out of Jefferson, Georgia. He's committed to Clemson. Harrison Luke, committed. He's a safety from just outside of Athens, North Oconee, Bogart, Georgia, and then finally Christian Chancellor Jr., another kid from Daniel High School, a corner, is also committed to them. So they've got those kids, and then the other two guys that other weekend, it's June 12th, the Tillman kid, the D lineman that's so good, and then Caleb Spivey, a kid that I know. He plays over at, it's listed at Carver Montgomery, but he's transferred back to his old school, Benjamin Russell. He's an undersized edge. That just screams Clemson, and they're doing a really good job with him. So very good recruit. We'll see how it works out. But they've got enough intrigue. If they could just add a few more guys, especially trenches, where are the offensive tackles, where are the defensive tackles? Are you going to take a second quarterback? I think Clemson can improve their stock. But again, it's going to be that NIL that gets them over the top, or it doesn't. When we come back, I want to discuss how do you get through everything that they've done with the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. We'll talk a little bit about quarterback, their schedule. Can they win the ACC? And we'll jump into the chat. I'm sure Katie's going to yell at me saying that Clemson's going to win the ACC. That's what she's good at. She's good at yelling at me. But at the same time, we'll talk about all that next, right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. And roughly the minute I'm going to be speaking with you, companies like yours make 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. So that means less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the premium status for its job you deserve at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show and tell everyone you heard about Indeed on this pod. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, we are to the part that's really fun. To promote recruiting, to promote the portal, to promote everything that you're doing, you got to coach it up. You got to show it in spring. Chad Morris is back at offensive coordinator. It is year 2 for the defensive coordinator. So you got a lot of newness there. You lost Klubnik. You lost several guys on the offensive line, a lot of graduate transfers. They got a bunch of freshmen, sophomores, and juniors on the 2 deep now on the offensive line. Gideon Davidson's a sophomore. You got TJ and some other receivers that are still underclassmen, Westco, etc. This is a fairly young team. How do you use that in spring with all these kids taking unofficial visits and you try to build out your OB list? Well, you practice well, you do well. It is paramount for Clemson, and I'm sure Dabo talks about this in coaching meetings, that they have a very good sense of what they're doing. They continue to be organized, which from every recruit parent I've ever spoken to, they run a very tight ship with that stuff on a visit day, on a camp day. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's a scrimmage, if they're just there to talk to Dabo, whatever it may be. Clemson's usually been very, very organized by all accounts. 4-star, 5-star kids I talked to all over. But they got to maximize that, again, with all that newness, including the coordinators, and this is where I want to talk about things. Clemson's offense last year was weird. The running back situation, you had a receiver essentially being like running back 1A or 1B in his last year. That's not normal. Clemson should never be in that boat. Gideon Davidson's a kid that everybody wanted. He's a kid out of Virginia as a national top 100 recruit. He's probably the guy. So that's step 1. 2, despite all of the talent that they'd assembled, they had a lot of highly touted offensive linemen last year. It didn't remotely perform that way in a lot of critical moments. Will they actually be better with some addition by subtraction? Possibly. I think that they need it because you can't be so inconsistent. And I know running back was part of that. But the O-line didn't get enough push last year. And then D-line. You're starting to lose some of those guys that you brought in that were studs. Now you need to find a way to not only replace them, but to excel. if Clemson's going to take that step forward and compete at the very top of the league again, not be a 6 to 8 win team, D-line, you could argue, is as important as it gets. And the talent is not bad, but my first question, D-line, which one is the dominant guy? I don't know if they have one, and maybe that's okay. Maybe at least early on, you can surprise some people. But I don't think you can do that for very long. Like, at the end of the day, especially at D-tackle, it's about talent. I tell people this all the time because a lot of coaches, I'm not the first one to say this. You can scheme offense. Defense, you have to be able to chase the ball with physical gifts. Size, speed, strength, length, and then just that gut that you want to go after it and get it. Vic Burley's a guy, like he's from Warner Robins, Georgia. I remember shaking Vic's hand when he was in high school, and I shook his hand. I couldn't see mine. It's insane how much physical talent he has, but he's had to take a long route there. He's a redshirt junior to get to the starting lineup. We'll see. Amari Adams is a kid that was kind of highly recruited. We'll see. Will Heltz, the transfer last year from Purdue, was one of their best defensive players. He's back. They got some guys. Is Helt going to be dominant? They need him to be. Sammy Brown is certainly going to be dominant. He's probably the best all-around player they have on their team, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm a big fan of Ashton Hampton in the back. But again, Tom Allen's defense, it's year 2. Will they take that step up and be better in big moments? Because they weren't last year. And you're going to see it in spring ball. And if it doesn't look right in spring ball, some of those kids that are visiting are not going to take OVs. Some of them might even cancel. You never know. Kids know. You can't fool them. TJ Parker and Peter Woods, they're gone, just among others. So the guys that are coming in like a London Merritt, maybe they've got to be that guy. Maybe it's Jaheim Lawson. I don't know. But that's going to be really important for the Tigers. I think they can be an 8-win or a better team. I'm not like Katie and thinking they're going to win the ACC. They got a lot to prove, but it's not out of the realm. And by the way, I hate saying this. It's just true. The ACC stinks. It is terrible. Florida State's down. Virginia Tech is in complete turnover. We assume that, by the way, Chad Morris's kid is not going to be the quarterback of Virginia again next year. BC's down. Georgia Tech just lost their quarterback. He's done. Haynes King. We'll see, but the league seems to be pretty down. SMU, I think, is the second best team. Rhett Lashley, obviously very talented coach. Cal's got some nice young pieces, but they don't have enough. Stanford's awful. It is right for the taking. If Clemson can kind of work these things out, they're maybe the most fascinating team headed into this season. Do they get there? I don't know. But to that end, I want to go into the chat. And from this point forward, let's consider this part 2. I'll break this up. I'll cut it up, and tomorrow morning I'll put this up for first thing. But right here on the Portal Podcast.